The third part of this lab asks you to complete some block diagrams, which are shown on this page. The methods that you'll use to complete this activity are the relative ages of the rocks and or any strike dip symbol information that you're given. For the first two blocks, A and B, you only have relative ages, and they're represented by these symbols. So you'll need to refer back to your legend to determine the relative ages of these. And you'll find that S represents Silurian, D Devonian, M Mississippian, which goes from oldest to youngest. And this makes sense. The older rocks should be on the bottom of a stack, and the younger rocks should be in the top of the stack. So we're looking at a syncline. We assume it's a non-plunging syncline, and I'll complete the first one for you by drawing this contact right down the side of the block, then that contact, and this one, and finally that one. Now, you're asked to add symbols to the map view. That's the top of the block. And so let's put a couple of representative symbols on this first one. We'll start with a strike dip symbol. And remember, the strike portion of the symbol is parallel to the contact. These beds are striking to the north. And the dip portion, because we're looking in a perspective view, is not going to be at right angles to the strike, but slightly different, but pointing in this case to the west. And another strike dip symbol here. We could even draw one more there. Now, the direction of dip is going to change over here, though, because we're looking at a syncline. The dip direction will be back towards the center. If we want to put a number by these symbols, it would be a number that estimates that angle right there with respect to the top of the block, and that looks fairly steep. I would say maybe 75-degree dip. Again, I'm just estimating that. One final symbol can go on this map, and it's called a fold symbol. The fold symbol has a long line that represents the axis of the fold. And then two arrows that point toward the axis in the case of a syncline, or they would point away from the axis in the case of an anticline. So in this case, you've got relative ages of rocks that help you complete that. Obviously, you can see what the structure is on the front of the block. In other blocks, you're going to be working with strike dip symbols and fold symbols again. So based on the information that's given here with these symbols, complete the face of this block and the face of the block just next door. Turn the page because you've got some more work to do on the back side of this page involving not only folded rocks but also faulted rocks. So be sure that you review the sections of this lab that describe faults and how to name them as you work on these blocks. The final portion of this lab, very similar to what we did in the other video clip, you're presented with a geologic map in which different colors represent different rocks and different ages. Your legend is over here, so you can see which rocks are the oldest. You also have strike dip symbols to help you interpret what types of folds these are. These are plunging folds. Again, I can tell that right away because of the broad sweeping V shapes or U shapes in the map. We need the strike dip symbols to tell if these are plunging anticlines or plunging synclines, but I think you'll be able to figure that out without any trouble. And then the cross section is at the base of this diagram with the topography already drawn on it. Now, you did a topographic profile in an earlier lab, and that's what this line represents, is the topography. A topographic profile has already been drawn in on this for you. You're going to get information across the line from X to Y. Everywhere there's a contact, you'll need to make a little mark on your scratch paper that dips in the direction that the nearest symbol tells you. When you've done collecting all that information for these contacts, you'll bring your scratch sheet down to the cross section, and everywhere you've made a little mark, slide it up until it intercepts the land surface and transfer the orientation of that mark to the actual profile. If it's dipping to the east, then slope it that way. If it's dipping to the west, then slope it in that direction. Get all of your marks on this topographic profile, and then you can start connecting these lines underground so that you fully define the anticlines and synclines that are in the cross section. All right, we hope that this helps you complete your structural geology lab.